Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we're going to talk about what to do with the brand new player to Warhammer 40,000. This is prompted by a couple of things. We're going to cover quite a lot, a few things that I think are key to making a new player feel welcome, feel like they know what they're doing, feel as though they're learning something, without you having to completely adjust your playing style or do the classic of going easy on the new guy. Now this is prompted by a couple of things. One is an email that someone has sent me, which I won't read the whole thing out, but the general gist of it is experienced player, has a sizable Space Marines army, has managed to convince his friend to play Warhammer 40k. Awesome, good work. The friend has got a smaller Eldar force, much smaller because they're a new player, and he's kind of dreading the first battle in a way. He's dreading that first time they play 40k together because he's been playing for a long time. He knows what he's doing, he knows what to do against an Eldar force of the type that his friend has, and it's that question, isn't it? Do you just play as normal and risk crushing the enemy to the point where they don't want to play anymore, or do you intentionally gimp yourself and give the new player an unrealistic kind of look into what happens when you play Warhammer 40k? And also, how do you do that without looking like you're taking it easy on them? Kind of tricky. And another thing that we're going to talk about is like the jargon side of things, the speed at which some experienced players will do things when playing 40k. And that's just brought on by a couple of threads that I've seen over the last few months where people have enjoyed 40k, they've enjoyed playing for the first time or even like the second or third time, but they just don't have the kind of experience required to instantly know what someone's talking about. And so when someone is blasting through what they're doing really quickly, it's kind of leaving them in the dust a little bit. They're enjoying it, but they're left a bit baffled. They're left a bit confused by how quickly things are said and kind of what's going on, which you want to avoid. So, I think what we'll start with is, we'll start with like the jargon, the speed side of things. So, I've kind of got an example for this that isn't 40k related, but I'm hoping that for some of you it will give an idea of what it can feel like for the new player every now and again. So at the moment I'm looking at buying a new guitar. I know what I want in this guitar and I know the specs that I'm looking for this guitar. Now, if you play the guitar, if you have an interest in how they're made or what goes into them, then most of what I'm about to say will make some sort of sense. At the very least, some of it will be recognisable. It'll be a case of, okay, I know what that means. If you just know that a guitar is a 6-string instrument with what you make music on, then the chances are what I'm about to say will be borderline meaningless because you don't have the experience and you don't have the kind of... I'm not even going to say that it's like expertise, it's just like a slightly deeper level of knowledge than someone who just knows what something is. You know, you can know what a car is without knowing how to build an engine. It's a similar thing. You can know what a guitar is without knowing exactly what kind of things that guitar is made from, or what kind of internals it has. So we'll do this as the example. Looking for a guitar, I know that I want either a through neck or a set neck. It needs to have locking tuners. I don't want anything like a Floyd Rose or a tremolo. I want preferably a hip shot hardtail because I'm familiar with those and I like them. It's got to have humbuckers. I'm not interested in single coils, passive humbuckers, not active pickups because I've already got a guitar with active pickups in it. Don't want another one. I prefer it to have coil split and a 25.5 inch scale length for drop tuning. That is what I prefer. And stainless steel frets, actually. The list is quite long. Now, if you know a decent amount about guitars, then you'll know what all of that means. And it's like, oh, okay, that's what he wants. If you don't know what a guitar is made of or what any of those things are, I will have just spouted gibberish at you. Probably a bit quicker than you'd have liked because you want to actually hear what some of the words are. It's the same for the new player. When you see two experienced players playing against each other, especially two experienced players who've been playing against each other regularly, you know, friends who have had plenty of games against each other, there can be almost a deficit of communication. You know, when you've got people who play against each other every week, it can get to the point where someone will literally just go, okay, and then they'll roll dice. I've seen this, I've genuinely seen this with my own eyes. Two people who, all they ever did was 40k was literally everything. And they were part of that gaming group that you had. There's a guy with a bunch of Tyranids, there's a guy with a bunch of Orcs. And they would quite literally play in silence just rolling dice. They got to a level of familiarity with each other where you could watch them play and they would exchange a couple of words throughout the game, but it would be a case of one of them would look, and then roll, and then the other dude would roll his saves on the unit that the guy was shooting at every time. It was genuinely scary. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is like that, because that's a very extreme example, but it's still very easy, if you've been playing for any length of time, to just kind of blurt stuff out. Okay, that unit's going to attack them, that unit's going to attack them, and then you start rolling. For the new player, that's fine, except who is that and what is them is basically what it boils down to. I mean, it sounds condescending, it sounds just like something that you would do anyway, but a surprising number of people don't do it. Saying that tactical squad and doing the full-on finger point as well. If you don't like doing the single finger, do the double finger. Single point is obviously better, more efficient. That tactical squad is going to fire at that. For a new player especially, if you know the names of the units, just use the name of the units. If you don't, then don't bother, because that's something that you can't help, really, without going away and doing a bit of research yourself. But for a new player, even if, for instance, if we take the example of Space Marines and Eldar, even if the Eldar player only has one unit of Dire Avengers on the board, don't just say, that tactical squad is going to fire at your Dire Avengers. Point at them. That tactical squad is going to fire at that unit of Dire Avengers. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Kiri, if he's only got one unit, why name it? Because he's a brand new player. Because he might know what each of his units are when he's got them at home, when he's painting them, when he's setting them all up for a nice little photo. He might know what they are when they're in the box. He might know what they are when he sets them up on the table. But when you start rolling dice and you start thinking about what every unit is going to do, who they're going to fire at, oh, how many saves we're going to have to roll now, do I have to worry about psychic powers, any of that stuff, that ability to just go instant recognition of that's what that is, for a brand new player, it's not the most complicated game in the world, but it also does require a little bit of thinking. And it's very easy to forget your basic shit when you're trying to do other stuff as well. Hell, I sometimes forget what I've set up where, and I've been playing this game for God knows how long. I still have an issue with Primaris, where I will look at my army, and I'll just go, okay, tactical. Wait, no, hang on. No, that is Hellblasters. No, I got that wrong. It happens to me because, well, let's face it, Primaris are kind of bad for it in a way because they all look the damn same, apart from the ones in massive armour. But I will occasionally just completely blank out on what a unit is and go, I think that's what that is, and then have to double check. For a new player, it's way more overwhelming than that. I mean, my memory's terrible, so that probably goes some way to explaining that, but that instant glance recognition that is there for people who've been playing for ages is not there for a new player. And especially if they're trying something that they've never tried before, if they've never played a tabletop game before, if it's a completely new experience in every way, that added thing of identifying what their thing is, whilst it sounds condescending, isn't condescending. It's not. At the very least, it's just making your intentions clear as to what you want to do. On a similar note, if you say, okay, Attack Marine's going to fire at Dire Avengers, don't then just roll the dice. I see that. I've seen that. God knows how many times people just roll the dice. And? The dude's playing Eldar, you're playing Space Marines. Tell him what your ballistic skill is. Tell him what it is. Is it 3+? Okay, great, that's fine. Say it before you roll the dice if you can, or whilst you're rolling it. Don't dump them and then look expectantly at someone and then go, oh, it's 3+. That just makes, especially for a new player, it makes them just feel like they don't know what they're doing. You don't want that. You want them to feel part of it, not like you're just waiting for them forever, which is a really crap way to go about it. And that applies to pretty much all of the stuff that you do. Saying what you're doing is not the same as giving away your strategy. This is something else as well. There seems to be this weird attitude with some people where it's like, well, I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing because I'll give away my strategy. You've got to say what you're doing. If you want that Assault Marine unit to charge those Guardians, you've got to say that that's what they're going to do if you're about to roll for it. You've got to do that. Don't just roll the dice and then go, aha, my plan worked. No. Explain what you're doing. That's not going to give away your grand strategy. That's not going to give away everything you plan to do over the course of the game. You need to say what your action is before you take your action. They can't stop you. This is something that's like, I don't know where this attitude's come from, but I've come across it so many times where there's like an almost refusal to declare what you're doing as you're doing it. You have to do it and then say, that's what I'm doing. As though they can somehow go, no, I refuse, so you can't do that. It's your turn. You can do whatever the fuck you like within the confines of the rules. So say what you're going to do. That feeds into, that's just all part of slowing it down. Slowing it down is not a bad thing. Slowing it down, taking that extra couple of seconds to just go the extra mile and explain what it is your intentions are. You don't have to give everything away. You don't have to give everything away that you're doing. You can just say, okay, I'm going to move these tactical marines over here, and then they're going to fire at that. If it's an especially new player, for instance, you could say I'm going to move them over here because then they've got partial cover, whatever. That's entirely up to you. That's something I would do, but that's, it depends on basically how comfortable we are with giving that much information away, explaining why you've done something. Although I would argue that unless you're in a competitive setting, unless this is some sort of bizarre situation where it's a league and you've got a new guy who's never played before turning up, there's no harm in doing that anyway. Anything that can kind of explain the rules in practice as opposed to them just being written down is not a bad way to go when it comes to new players in 40k in my experience. It's one of those things where at the time you might think, is there any point in me explaining this? Yeah, probably. Probably, because if it's something that you take for granted, it's something that you've done often enough and know well enough that you don't need that information anymore. For someone who's brand new, that could introduce an entire new level of how they play. That could give them something more to think about. It could actually improve what they're doing. So, slow it down. Remove the jargon. Don't just roll dice and go, okay, they're shooting that. Explain. Give information on the unit that you're using. Give information about the unit that you're firing at. Say they hit on this because of this. If they're getting a buff, say what the buff is. Just an example of still being confused by rules. Right now, I could not tell you whether it's the captain, the Primaris captain, that allows you to reroll hits or reroll wounds, or whether it's the lieutenant that allows you to reroll hits or reroll wounds. One of them lets you do one of those, and the other one lets you do the other one. I still can't remember which it is. I still can't remember. And my Primaris army is the one that I've fought the most with since 8th came out. I can't remember that. What hope has a new player got? Tell them what you're doing. Explain it in a way that don't treat them like a kid. Don't go, and now we move the tactical. Don't have to do that. All you have to say is, okay, I'm going to move the tactical marines over there because that takes them out of range of that guy, and then I'm going to use them to shoot your Dire Avengers. It's as simple as that. And it sounds obvious. I know it sounds obvious. You're probably sitting there going, oh, how is this a video? It sounds really obvious. People don't fucking do it. They don't do it enough that I've seen multiple new players complain about people not doing this stuff. It's not that difficult. All you have to do is just slow down. Just approach it as if... the best way to do it is approach it as if you were a new player. If you were a new player, would you want someone to explain what that is? Yeah? Then do it. Now, the thing that connects all of this together. How do you play against a new player? Do you go all in? Do you go ham? Do you get your competitive list out? Do you go a bit of Tau commander spam? Do you go that way? Or do you actually just play for fun and see what happens? To be honest, that is one of those questions that I don't think there's any right answer for because it's so dependent on the people playing. I would say bringing a competitive, like an actual proper competitive list, like a tournament list, to someone's first ever game of 40k is somewhere between dick move and deserving to be fired into the sun, to be perfectly honest with you. If your aim is to annihilate a new player, then what is your problem? Like, there's so many people that you could actually have a proper game with and prove that you're really good. Demolishing a brand new player with his freshly painted army, I just don't understand the point. I'll be totally honest with you. That's one of those things where I've seen that happen and I've just stood there thinking, how is this? What is wrong with this person? What is their issue? Or what is your malfunction? Why are you doing this? It's just totally pointless. You can still play how you want to play. This is the thing. No one particularly plays 40k to lose. And if you're going to play against a brand new player, then I wouldn't say, then don't do your best. Don't try and win, just let them win. I wouldn't say that because I think that does a disservice to new players. I think if a new player is starting out, they want a game with you, and you just go, okay, well, I'll let them win. Don't do that. Because the second they play someone who isn't you, they're not going to let them win, and they're going to just trample all over them, and they're going to suddenly think to themselves, oh, I thought I was doing okay, oh, this really sucks. That's not the way to go. The chances are, for a new player, they will lose their first few games of 40k, and that's okay, because pretty much everyone did. There's no such thing as a participation trophy for 40k, because actually, unless you're playing in a tournament settings, the wins don't really matter. It's about having fun, it's about enjoying the game, it's about seeing two armies on the board fighting against each other. That's what makes 40k such a good experience. It's having a game with friends. This is something that, again, I think there's a genuine issue with some people where it's just, if there is a PvP element, it has to be competitive. I must win every time. Well, yeah, it's nice to win, everyone likes winning, but you're not going to win every time. And if you're playing against a brand new player, then by all means, bring your favourite list. Bring the list that you like playing the most in a casual setting. You know, if you've got a particular army that you've always wanted to try out, you've got a particular combination of units, you don't know if it would work, but you like that combination, why don't you try that? Why don't you use it as a chance for a bit of experimentation? Try a few builds that you are not really sure would function in a tournament setting, but you know full well could actually be pretty good in casual play. Bring that along. You know, when someone's starting out, I've helped a couple of people start with 40k, and what I've told them straight off the bat is, you're probably going to lose your first few battles quite badly, just because you don't know all of the rules. You don't know, you know, until you get to the point where you start knowing what other people's armies are and what they do, you're going to have it a little bit harder than more experienced players. But you will get to that point. And every time you lose, look at what happened to build up to that loss. Look at the way you handled certain situations. Look at what units you used to attack other units. Was it effective? Did it work? You know, when you decided that you were going to take that Lehman Russ and you were going to charge it directly into a bunch of Terminators, was that a good idea? You know, you've got to kind of, I think, prepare people for not doing great. You've also got to play in a way that isn't completely just stupid. You know, don't have your army waltzing around the board doing nothing and let it get shot to pieces, because that's not a realistic representation of how 40k is going to play. Play to win, but don't smash. You know, you don't have to smash. And even if you do end up smashing, there's a definite attitude difference. If you go in with the intention to just crush the guy, crush the new player, wreck him, annihilate his army, your attitude will come across as though that's what you want to do. You can't really hide that. If your intention is to go in and ruin his day, then the chances are you will come across as someone who has gone in to ruin his day. If you go in with the intention of having a game with someone, of winning, but also having fun, your attitude will reflect that, and it will be a much more enjoyable experience for the other person. And on that note, there is a definite thing of, well, why should I, cater to someone else? Why can't I do what I want to do? To that, I would just say that I reckon the vast majority of times you get to do what you want to do, and the way you want to do it. If you're a tournament player, that means you get to take the builds that you want to tournaments and beat the shit out of people with them. If you like having really competitive games between friends, you get to do that most of the time. Stepping outside of that just for one game to try and get someone new into the hobby, that should not be seen as a chore. That shouldn't be seen as some sort of drag or something that you shouldn't have to do, or, oh, it's not my responsibility if they lose. It's not my responsibility if they don't stay in the hobby. I just wanted to win. You can win. The chances are you will bloody win. But you don't have to be an arsehole about it. It's basically the gist of this. Play as you normally would. Experiment with a few lists. Take stuff that isn't optimal. You have the benefit of experience. You have the benefit of knowing what his army does and how his army works. You have the benefit of knowing exactly what your army does in any capacity. You already have the advantage just by having played the game for a year, 2 years, 3 years, even just 6 months more than the other person. Use that to construct your advantage to win, whilst explaining what you're doing and why you're doing it. Don't just bring your best top tier tournament army and beat the shit out of them. That's not a good way to encourage new players. And whilst you could say, well, it's as with anything else, you're on your own. If you want to play 40k, you'll play 40k. 40k is more popular now, again. It is starting to get back up there. People are starting to become more interested in it. It's still not the tabletop equivalent of Call of Duty. It's still not massive. It's still not in a position where it cannot fail. New players are vital to keep systems like this alive. In fact, new people are vital to keep any system alive. Don't drive people away. There's no point to it. You don't really achieve anything except reducing the pool of opponents that you could play against in the future. It's possible to be welcoming while still winning. It's possible to educate while still enjoying yourself. And it's possible to get a new player into 40k while still maintaining your personal preference of whatever army you use and whatever tactics you use. You can do all of those things. None of them are mutually exclusive. You can achieve all of that. Just got to engage your brain a little bit. Slow it down. Explain what you're doing. Bring a list that, might not be a top tier tournament list, but is still decently competitive. Play with it well, whilst telling the other person why you're playing it the way you're playing it, why you're doing what you're doing. And then congratulations, you've just given a new player to 40k an enjoyable experience where he knew what was going on, he knew what units were what, he knew what weapons they had, he knew why they attacked the way they did, he knew what it took for them to attack successfully, and even though he lost, he still enjoyed it because he got to learn something, he got to see what his army could do with a bit of practice. That's all it takes. I say that's all it takes, I've been talking for 20 minutes. Anyway, if you enjoyed that video, then leave a like, as always. There's plenty of other stuff to click all over the screen, like, subscribe, Patreon, subscription, other videos, I already said whatever. I hate doing these intros, they're terrible. If you want to click any of that stuff, then click it. It is entirely up to you, it is your life, live it how you like, and I will see you for the next video. Toodaloo.